It's time for
On the Victory Homefront
with Jamie. Everyone, and welcome to On the Victory Homefront. I can't believe I actually got video. This has been a long time coming. As you may know, if you've already been following me, you know this has been a long time coming. And to be honest, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to editing platforms for podcasts, especially for videos. I used to have a radio show with one of my best friends, and we did just audio, and I feel like I got really good at that. But to move into something of a video, this is all so new to me. So please be patient as I try to figure out this platform. I may not continue using the editing software that I'm currently on to make this video. This is kind of a test run. So I am very excited. I'm coming to you from our new location in Northeast Ohio. If you had been already listening to my podcast, I was living in Texas, and about 7 weeks ago, we made a big move, 1,100 miles, to Northeast Ohio. And I'm coming to you live from our new homestead. And this is my sewing room. That is a work in progress. It's going to take me quite some time to get our home to where I want it to be. And unfortunately, like all of the modern-ish homes and styles, every wall in our house is gray. And that's not going to stay. But we've got the holidays coming, so it's just going to have to stay gray for now. So yes, you got my gray walls, but I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got. I've got my lovely ladies joining me here, and I'm just so excited to actually be making this video. Now, this episode, I'm not going to lie, has been such a pain for me because I have been recording and recording just audio, and it's just not been coming out right. And I really wanted to share with you the experiences of our move, and not just the move itself, but where we are and the strength that I've been finding thanks to the greatest generation and my love of the World War II Homefront in helping me with some of the currents that I am finding ourselves in, and not just inconveniences, but really we've left a lot of the comforts behind that we really grew accustomed to. And I think a lot of people that live in the country, if you've lived in the country all your life, you may not see these as inconveniences, but for somebody who's always lived in town, in city limits, this is something very, very new to me. And I knew part of this coming into this this new chapter in our lives, but I didn't know some of it. So it's been a learning curve. Kind of when rationing first happened in 1942. All of a sudden, things weren't available to those on the home front. You were missing food, you were missing gas, you had restrictions on your clothing. And the funny thing is that I'm actually dealing with some of that now. Maybe not quite to the same level, of course, that, those during the World War II had to deal with. Not even close. I am not saying that there is an equal comparison. There is not. But I use their strength and their resilience and their making do attitude to kind of help me navigate this new chapter. So for the most part, the move has been really, really great. We got here relatively fast. For those who may not know, we moved here for my husband's work. I've already had people coming up to me going, "Why did you move from Texas?" I love Texas. I'm a Texan at heart. I really feel that way. And I had great friends there. I had a wonderful vintage community there, a group that I was a part of that was amazing. And we were doing educational events and things so close to my heart. And I also had a wonderful job as a museum director at the local historic village there. And really things were really great. Okay, the heat, not so much. I really struggled with the summers down there, and I really missed the four seasons having grown up in the Midwest. But for the most part, I absolutely loved where we lived in Texas. And my husband had gotten an offer for a new position, and it just so happened to be that he wasn't very happy with the company that he was working at. So when this other company came forward and offered him a position, we talked about it, and it was in our best interest for his career, him as the breadwinner, and for our family, for him to take this position and for us to relocate. And so here we are. And the exciting thing is this is something that we've worked on or worked towards our entire life, and we never really knew if we were going to meet it. We always wanted to live in the country. We always wanted to have acreage. And I think there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way, and that's easier said than done. However, I've been very fortunate, not just myself, our little family. It is myself, my husband, and my oldest son, who's on the autism spectrum, are living here in Northeast Ohio. And my father-in-law is also living with us. And my youngest stayed back in Texas. But we did feel it was just in our best interest to move out here. And as I was saying, it has been a really positive move and a lot of changes. So I think the most difficult thing to begin with is if you listen to my third episode, the one before this, I don't know what's going on. I'm getting weird things on my screen, so I apologize. As I said, I'm very new to this. We had animals that I needed to move and relocate, chickens, dogs, cats, my son on the spectrum, myself, our things. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. It was very, very, very stressful, but we got here. We got here okay. And I told you before how I was going to have a car packed with animals. Well, thankfully, my dear husband helped me out in that area. Not only did he take all 3 dogs, but he took the chickens with him. And so when I came up here to Ohio, it was just myself, the cats, but my car was still loaded down with all the extra things that we didn't fit into the truck. And my son isn't one for like driving straight through, but that's what we did. We drove straight through. We left really early in the morning and we got here late in the evening. And thankfully, it worked out. And here we are. Our truck arrived several days later, much earlier than it first anticipated. And I have been unpacking since. And you can see I am not done. I'm not even close to being done. And the crazy thing is that we moved from a smaller house to a bigger house, and I feel like I've got less room. I don't know where I had put all these things that I have. I have too much stuff, way too much stuff, and it's been really eye-opening and stressful on me. I'm not gonna lie. It's been really, really tough. And I keep losing connection, so I'm hoping that this is working out all right. Anyway, I didn't want this episode to be all complaints. I promise. That's not what this is about. I just wanted to share with you because you all knew I was moving, and I wanted to let you know that we moved okay, we're safe, we're in our new house, and it is quickly becoming and feeling like home. And we have so many exciting projects that are currently going on and things that we have had to kind of learn through and bring into our lives to help us be successful and to help us get to the point where we're hoping to be on this property. So let me first tell you one of the things that I'm dealing with, and I think this is really important because this is really going to kind of talk about the resilience of that greatest generation that I love so much and that I try to bring into my everyday life, is living like the greatest generation did during the war years, because I think we really could learn a lot from those lessons. And one of the first things I am having a difficult time here is actually finding items that I am used to us having in our diets, that I'm used to being able to find easily. And I'm not just talking brands. So if you remember from my other episode, this is not my first rodeo. This is not my first big move. We've moved several times, and I'm used to not finding the same brands in one part of the country as the other. It's not about that. It's literally food items I'm having a really difficult time finding. So I'm going to give you an example, and then we are going to bring in a lesson from World War II. So one of the items I'm having a very difficult time finding is organic potatoes. And yes, I can find potatoes at any store that's in the area. I do have to drive a little further to get to a store, but I can't find organic potatoes. I went to 3 different locations yesterday because potatoes were going to be one of the main ingredients in the dinner I had planned that I already had in my slow cooker, and I needed to find these potatoes to add them in as soon as possible. I couldn't find them. I could not find organic potatoes. And yes, I'm really big on having, watching what we eat. So could I have gotten regular potatoes? Sure. I could have gotten regular potatoes, but the person that I am, where I'm very health conscious, I'm very aware of what's in our food. Non-organic potatoes was just not going to happen for me. So I drove out of my way, more gasoline, and when I did finally find them, they were priced really high. I was a little sticker shocked for organic potatoes, and I did end up buying them. I bought 2 little bags of these little golden organic potatoes, and I spent $10 on these 2 small bags of organic potatoes. Something I wouldn't normally have done, but I was already in the mindset that this needed to go in my dinner, and so I paid that high sticker price, drove all the way back home, and I got them in my crock pot, and it was a delicious dinner. It was delicious, but normally I would not have spent that. I'd be like, nope, we're not having potatoes. So something very similar during World War II when rationing happened. And this is where I'm learning to be resilient and to get through this and to make do with what I can find and what we've got. When rationing first happened in 1942, it was an overnight change. Kind of like this move for me. So they went from having access to every item they could possibly ever imagine to some items were now rationed if you could find them at all. And if you did find them, you got a small amount. Kind of like what I did with the potatoes, where I got this small amount for $10. So I'm really using that resilience, right? That mindset. So would I have normally bought these potatoes? No. And I guarantee when the greatest generation first started rationing, they didn't really know how to do without certain items. And so that is something that I am going to be working on here on the Victory Homefront. And one of the first items that actually disappeared from the shelves for those during World War II was butter. Butter was one of the first items that practically was non-existent for a lot of families here in the country. And so what did we do? Do you know what we did? We brought in margarine. And margarine back then was white. So what they did to help people feel like they weren't doing without, because you want the comforts of home, right? We know from World War II and all the propaganda that you wanted to keep spirits uplifted. You wanted to remind everybody the comforts of home, what you're fighting for, why you're doing this. And so something as little as butter was a comfort for many families. It's what was always on the table, was always in the icebox. So they actually included little dye packets that were yellow, and you would add this to your margarine and you would knead it in by hand, and it would turn the margarine a butter yellow. So then people didn't feel like they were doing without. Could I have done that yesterday for potatoes? I can't think of anything off the top of my head. What would you have done instead of potatoes? So, and it was for a pot roast, just FYI. I'd love to see them in the comments. So help me find different ways to keep our meals what we like, and substituting and just helping us, ration some of these things that we just can't find and find substitutions for where it doesn't feel like we're doing without. The other things that were rationed during World War II was sugar, as I know many of you know. I mean, sugar was the thing that was rationed the longest, right? We didn't stop rationing sugar until 1947, and the war ended in 45. So just to give you an idea, meat was rationed. That was another thing. And you know what else was rationed? Coffee. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't do without my cup of coffee. I can't. I need my coffee every morning, just 1 cup. Well, just imagine going from 1 cup of coffee in the morning to only having, I think you got 1 pound of coffee like every 3 weeks per person. So you had to make a pound last. Now, one thing I've noticed, and I'm sure it's everywhere else in the country, but I can only speak from my neck of the woods, is I've seen the coffee prices go up. Coffee's getting really expensive. And so I have been going from store to store to store, also trying to find deals on coffee. Well, you know how they made coffee stretch during World War II? They added things like chicory. They would add chicory to coffee and just to make it stretch. And did you know you can still get chicory coffee today? I did a search on Amazon, and yes, there is chicory coffee, and it's pretty inexpensive. So I'm going to give that a try. And so this next episode, I'm going to hopefully have chicory coffee, and I'm going to taste it right here live on my podcast and let you all see like my reactions and how it is. So it's still coffee, but it's coffee with chicory. And I guess it's a big thing down in New Orleans. I don't know. I'm not from that area. So, but they did that during World War II. So there is this incredible resilience, right? That we can learn from the greatest generation when you have these changes in your life. And as we know, life is always going to change. It's always going to change. It doesn't have to be a move. It doesn't have to be a job change. It could just be anything at any given time. And I really feel like that greatest generation, that generation that went through such a pivotal time in our history, really has wonderful lessons to learn. Another thing that was rationed during World War II was gas. And I am actually using some of the mindsets to help me watch my gas up here, because that's another thing I have found. Gas prices are much higher here than they were in Texas. Now, they're not as high as some areas in the country. And so maybe if you're in one of those areas, you can look into carpooling or taking public transportation. I think public transportation probably felt a little safer back then. I don't really know. And I don't really have any here in this area where I live. I'm in between 3 small towns. And so I've not seen public transportation here. I'm sure there is something, and I'm not talking Uber. I mean trains, buses. I haven't seen that here, but not saying there isn't. And maybe there's something like that in your area. But I am definitely I'm trying to really minimize my driving. So I have a lot of work cut out for me to be as successful in these lack of items that I'm finding, in these higher prices that I'm dealing with. I have my work cut out for me. And those during the World War II Homefront, 1942, 43, 44, half of 45, a little bit more, depending on, what theater you're talking about. They had a lot to deal with too. So I know I can do this. And I know whatever you're dealing with, I know you can get through it too. And you just have to find that resilience. You need to find that drive and determination and hard work and get creative on what you can do to help your situation. One of the things that we're doing is we are planting our garden right now. I'm going to have my victory garden. We are getting it tilled hopefully this weekend. It was supposed to be done like a little over a week ago, and unfortunately the weather didn't work out. It's okay. We're going to do it this weekend, and we are planning our victory garden for next year. But in the meantime, I'm very dependent on stores. During World War II, when rationing first happened, if there was anything positive about the timing of when rationing happened, it is that it happened in the spring. So during that time, when a lot of these items were getting rationed, people could right away plant a garden. So then in a matter of months, you were starting to bring in fresh produce that was going to help, get you more food, stretch your ration points, and ways to keep your family fed. We moving here in the fall, we don't have that opportunity. I can't actually plant our victory garden till the spring, and then I'm not going to start getting harvests for a matter of months, depending on what I'm planting, before it's going to start actually helping our situation with our groceries, because our groceries have been quite high lately. So if there's one thing that was really good about the timing of when rationing happened, it was that people could right away get seeds out into their garden right then and there. Yeah, that's just something that, I'm just going to have to hang in there. Now, luckily, I'd already been a canner, and so we do have some food stocked up, not as much as I would like. My goal is to be able to have substantial amounts of food that we can produce here on our property, so that I'm not making all these trips to the store. I'm not using all of this gas and trying to find organic potatoes, because I'm going to be growing my own. Hopefully, I have a wonderful harvest. So these are things that I am taking away with the challenges that I'm finding ourselves in. And the funny thing is that moving out to the country, I almost feel like even more connected to my grandparents' generation, because there are things that I'm dealing with out here that I only saw in like movies because I've never lived in the country before. We're on well water. I've never been on well water. And the perk is we don't have a water bill. But where we're not paying the city for our water, we are paying to treat the water ourselves. So it kind of like equals itself out. We're not saving money at all, but we treat the water ourselves. But also, I have no water pressure. I have no water pressure. It is so new to me. And the other thing is that this is kind of humorous, but in our house, I know maybe you guys deal with this where you live, but I've never dealt with it before, and I've only seen it in like old movies or cartoons. And that is, if you're showering, you got to let everybody in the house know to not use the bathroom, because if they do and they flush the toilet, you're going to get ice cold water. And it's happened to me. It's happened to me. It's happened to my husband. It's no fun at all. And that is something that is actually just really hilarious to me. I feel in some ways that I've stepped back in time. And not to mention, the area that I moved to is so beautiful, and I can feel the history here. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to share with you things that I see, things that I learn. I'm going to take you to places that I've learned about. There's so much World War II history here that I'm shocked that there is not really anybody doing anything about it. I think I need to do something about that. So much World War II history here, and I'm just blown away. I drive down all these country roads everywhere I go, and there's 100-year-old farms on the side of the road. I get my milk from a 120 plus year dairy. How cool is that? I am just so excited for this new chapter. I'm so excited to share so many things with you. And yes, I know that this podcast is kind of all over the place because there's so much that I could tell you, and I can't get my ideas straight because I just want to blurt it all out to you all at once. Not a good idea. So you know what that means? It means you're going to have to keep coming back for each episode to see what's going on and what we're going to talk about. I've got so many ideas planned. I've got so many things written out. This was just on the fly. I had the opportunity to try this new platform, and here I am. Yeah, I'm just so excited to bring you all with me on this journey. So be sure to subscribe. I don't know what this dust is flying over here. I thought I dusted this room pretty well. But be sure to subscribe to me here on Spotify or YouTube, whichever one you are watching on. And just so you know, I am on other platforms. I am on TikTok. On TikTok, you can find me under a 1940s vintage life, which I am considering changing it over to On the Victory Homefront. So you might have to look for that as well if you can't find me. You can't miss me. You're going to see my face everywhere. And then I'm also on Instagram under miss.ms.victoryv, and that's VEE. And where I'm the most active is actually on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It is called On the Victory Homefront. I'm updating quite a bit on there. So if you love this kind of content, you just want to see what I'm doing, especially when it comes to being maybe a 90s homesteader or housewife or family, that is really one of the best places to follow me at. I am getting on there several times a week with updating and sharing little things that I'm doing and pictures. And I'm actually having a lot of fun on there, more than I thought I would have. So be sure to check me out on those platforms as well. And be sure to come back for the next episode. And it may not look like this, but it's still going to be loaded with lots of info and talks of World War II and how I am bringing that 1940s lifestyle into my everyday life. So until then, Rosies and Homefront Joes, stay strong because victory is in the everyday.